transactions. Now, this is a 2021 development. I had to mention it again here in 2023 now, because this is, in my opinion, perhaps one of the top 2 or 3 tax opinions involving churches in the last quarter century. But it's given, there's hardly any publicity given to this. So I want you to be aware of this. It's so important. I talk about it in great depth in my tax guide. So you get a copy of this, look that up, and you'll see a great deal of discussion on this issue, excess benefit transaction. So here's the problem. You know, like I said, there are 5 requirements for a church to be exempt from federal income tax. One of them is none of your earnings, and nor to the private benefit of an individual, other than as reasonable compensation for services rendered. The penalty for violating this was revocation of exempt status. So look at Notre Dame football, the coach making $10 million a year. I don't know what it is. Let's say it's 10 million. Is that excessive? Is that unreasonable? Is that inordinate? And I think many people might say that it is. Well, you know, then are you risking the loss of exemption of Notre Dame University? And the IRS couldn't bring itself to do that. Hardly anybody lost their exempt status because of excessive compensation paid to workers. So the IRS begged for some intermediate sanction. Congress complied or obliged with the excess benefit transaction rules of Section 4958 of the tax code. Now, this section says that any disqualified person of a tax-exempt organization, that includes a director, officer, or family member of such a person, they're subject to an excess benefit tax of 25% plus a second tax, if the first one is not corrected, of 200%, for a total of 225% excise tax. The penalty is on the recipient, not the church, except for managers, which are board members that authorize the transaction. They're subject to a tax of 10% of the amount of the benefit, or 200 or 20,000, whichever is greater. And then the real killer came in 2004, when the IRS ruled that excess benefits are not necessarily have to be excessive. There's such a thing. The IRS came up with this concept of an automatic excess benefit, which means a benefit that's taxable but wasn't reported as taxable. It becomes an excess benefit that subjects the recipient to these draconian taxes. So you look at this example here, for example. A church treasurer does not report a pastor's monthly car allowance of $500 as taxable income because she assumed that he has car expenses of at least this month. There's a classic example of a very common transaction. I don't know how much he has, but he gets $500 a month. I'm sure he drives more than that. So we're not going to report it. That is a automatic excess benefit because you have taxable income that's not reported as taxable. So what happens here is you take the $500 a month times 12 is $6,000 times 225%. That's a tax of $13,500 on a very routine, common transaction of a $500 car allowance. So you got to be familiar with these rules and make sure that you're in compliance. Down at the bottom, lessons for church leaders. Make sure you understand what is taxable income. And in my tax guide, I list, I think, 25 different kinds of church income that's taxable that many churches just don't know. So that's, I urge you, as soon as you get that book, read chapter 4 at the beginning where I list different kinds of taxable income. And that's really a great thing to do to make sure that you're not subjecting anybody to these potential penalties. Anyway, the point about what's recent here is the United States Tax Court ruled that the wife of the founder of a medical missions charity had received an excess benefit from the charity, subjecting her to a first-tier penalty of 25% of the amount of the excess benefit and an additional second-tier tax of 200% of the excess, since she had not been it had not been returned to the charity. So here's the first case involving a religious organization that was subject to these draconian excise taxes. So anyway, I thought that was a very significant development.